Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So let's begin today's discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 7 important articles for a detailed analysis. We have 4 articles that are more relevant for the mains exam, and we have 3 small articles that are relevant for the prelims. So let's cover these topics one by one so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. If you guys are benefiting from our initiatives, don't forget to press the like button, do share your comments and do subscribe to our channel. So before we start the analysis, we have a very important announcement. If you are facing challenges with regard to preparing for current affairs, or with regard to choosing your optional subject, or even with regard to the books that you need to refer for various subjects, we are here to help you out through a workshop that will be conducted on the 13th of April on the Unacademy app. Sarmad Mehraj sir will guide you on the strategy for current affairs, your optional subject, and as well as the book list. So do attend this workshop, and the link for the same is provided in the video description below. So with this, let's begin with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at this column from page number 4. I've taken up the international edition today because we have few interesting articles. So this column is written by Mr. Ajay Kumar Sood, who is the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. So in this article, the writer is examining the concept of One Health. This article gives us an opportunity to understand the concept of One Health because India has recently launched the National One Health Mission. So as the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, Ajay Kumar Sood has played a critical role in proposing the National One Health Mission and in leading its establishment. Recently, the Union Cabinet has approved the post of the Director of National Institute of One Health, which has been established at Nagpur in Maharashtra, which is going to drive the National One Health Mission. In fact, this concept was proposed a couple of years ago in 2022. And since then, the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council has been leading this initiative, and under the office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, the National One Health Mission has been crafted and it has been approved for implementation by the Union Cabinet. Just a few weeks back, the Union Cabinet approved the role of Director of National Institute of One Health to drive this initiative. So that is the context. So let's go beyond the article. Let's not stick to what the article is talking about, because understanding the concept of One Health is very, very important for your prelims and as well as for your mains. This could be a potential essay topic as well. So I would like to explore this topic in complete detail. So let's understand the concept of One Health. See, One Health as a concept has been trending globally. Around the world, many countries, global institutions, they're all focusing on establishing the One Health concept in their healthcare systems. So One Health lies at the intersection of human health, environmental health, and animal health. See, generally when we talk about healthcare, we generally focus on human health alone. We don't give the same priority to ecological and environmental health, and even to the health of animals, plants, and other species. But the concept of One Health says that the health of all these stakeholders is interconnected. Human health is dependent on environmental factors. Human health is influenced and impacted by animal health and plant health, and vice versa. Take, for example, zoonotic diseases, contagious zoonotic diseases. These pathogens, they jump from the zoonotic source to human beings. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Nipah virus, So there are plenty of such pathogens that can cause deadly diseases in human beings which would have jumped from the animal world, either from livestock industry or from wild animals, wild birds. We have avian influenza, for example, right, which is possible to show a zoonotic jump from the wild and the captive animals and other species, where the pathogen might jump to humans, resulting in deadly diseases with potential pandemic consequences. So it's important to safeguard human health by focusing on environmental health and animal health as well. This includes plant health also. So a holistic integrated approach in healthcare that prioritizes human health along with environmental health and animal health, that is your concept of One Health. Generally, veterinary sciences that focuses on animal health is not given the same priority as human health. Even when it comes to the environment and our ecosystems, environment conservation, ecological protection is seen as a separate domain altogether. But in reality, the three are interconnected. Be it the flora and fauna, the ecosystems and the environment, and human beings, right? All three are interconnected. So any adverse developments in one segment, right, will affect the other as well. Let's say, for example, excessive deforestation, climate change. It destroys the health of our environment and ecosystems. So this could give rise to deadly pathogens, right, which could affect various plants, animals, birds, etc. And some of these pathogens might mutate and they might make a zoonotic jump, and eventually it might affect human beings as well. So even the pathogens that affect animals and birds, for example, be it lumpy skin disease, foot and mouth disease, or avian influenza, right? They all have a deadly economic impact which affects our economy. It affects our socio-economic development. It affects the farmers. It affects the rural economy. So whatever happens in our environment and also in the animal and plant world directly affects the well-being of humans as well, along with a socio-economic impact on our countries and societies. So it's very important to approach healthcare in a holistic, integrated manner. That is where the concept of One Health comes up. This concept has gained a lot of popularity worldwide. It's a holistic approach that lies at the intersection of human health, environmental health, and animal and plant health. So that is the whole concept. It mainly focuses on tackling the spread of deadly diseases which could have pandemic potential, like COVID-19, for example, Nipah virus, then other diseases that affect livestock, like lumpy skin disease, foot and mouth disease, various strains of avian influenza. They have a deadly economic impact and they might even make a zoonotic jump. So addressing these concerns is the essence of One Health concept. So under the concept of One Health, today global institutions led by World Health Organization, the United Nations, they're all promoting this concept towards integrated holistic healthcare. Governments are prioritizing One Health today, and India is one of the leading powers to have initiated few measures on the concept of One Health. But don't assume that the concept of One Health is only a byproduct of modern times. In fact, there is a history behind it. Even since ancient times, several researchers, several physicians and pathologists since ancient times have stressed upon the importance of One Health concept. If you look at Hippocrates, the Greek philosopher, researcher, and pathologist, centuries ago, right, millennia ago, he spoke about the relationship between public health, that is human health, and clean environment. He identified that environmental factors, for example, lack of hygiene or destruction of environmental systems and ecosystems, it could directly contribute to more diseases amongst humans as well, and even diseases present in the animal world, in the plant kingdom, could affect humans in different ways. So this relationship was identified centuries ago by Hippocrates. Several other top physicians, pathologists have also spoken about the need for One Health concept since decades and hundreds of years. If you look at top German physician Rudolf Virchow back in 1800s, he highlighted the link between animal health and human health care. He said there can be no dividing lines between veterinary science and medical science. We shouldn't treat them as separate entities. We should not treat them in silos, as both are connected to each other, both are dependent on each other. Even as recently as 1900s, eminent veterinarians like James Steele, Calvin Schwab, they've all spoken about the importance of protecting our ecosystems, protecting our environment, and how this can safeguard animal health, our biodiversity, and eventually it can contribute to human health as well. So the concept of One Health is not entirely new or modern. There is a history behind it. There is a historical origin. So today, this concept has gained global momentum and India has taken the lead, and we have already set up the National One Health mission. So let's understand what exactly does the mission focus upon. What is the structure of the mission? Which are the stakeholders involved in driving this mission? And what are the objectives of the National One Health mission? So based on this, you can expect prelims and mains questions. See, One Health integrates the idea of bringing human health in collaboration with animal health, plant health, and environmental health. So all the concerned ministries, departments at the central level, at the state level, which are working on these different aspects of healthcare, they all need to coordinate, they all need to work together, they all need to share information, collaborate and share their resources so that they can promote the holistic concept of One Health. That is the idea behind India's National One Health mission. So be it battling animal-specific diseases like lumpy skin disease, which affects livestock cattle primarily, but this has an economic impact and a social impact on human beings, on farmers and on the rural economy. There could be a zoonotic jump, a deadly zoonotic jump of a pathogen like SARS coronavirus 2, for example, which has pandemic potential and it could disrupt our regular life. It could have a huge human cost along with a huge economic cost. So it's important to look at healthcare holistically and look at all the aspects of healthcare, not just human health, but also environmental health and animal health. So that is the essence of India's One Health concept as well. So under the National One Health mission, almost 13 different ministries and government departments are coming together to drive this concept. So at the central level, various ministries, including Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Agriculture, then Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, even the Defense Ministry, and important departments, be it Indian Council of Medical Research and National Center for Disease Control. So all these stakeholders are coming together under the National One Health mission, which will be driven and implemented by the National Institute of One Health. So recently, the proposal has been approved by the Union Cabinet. This entire concept has been developed by the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor, and it will also bring the private organizations, NGOs, and international organizations together. So it will not only bring the government entities together, but even other stakeholders in healthcare will be brought together to develop coordination so that we can approach healthcare in a holistic manner. So through this initiative of the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council, a cross-ministerial effort has been undertaken to establish the National One Health mission of India. So please take a look at the different ministries and government departments that are being brought together under this mission. So the National Institute of One Health, which has been established, it has come up at Nagpur in Maharashtra. It was inaugurated by the Prime Minister a couple of years ago. And in February 2024, the post of the director who will head this institution has also been approved by the Union Cabinet. So this institution will act as the anchor of this mission. It will drive the National One Health mission as the nodal agency. It will build coordination with all the stakeholders, especially with these ministries and departments of the central government. From Environment Ministry to Health Ministry, Ministry of Ayush, Ministry of Agriculture. So all these ministries and related government departments are coming together, and the initiative is driven by the National Institute for One Health. So let us understand the exact goals of this mission. What are the objectives? The primary focus of the mission is to improve disease surveillance, ensure that there is better monitoring of deadly diseases, especially the ones that have epidemic and pandemic potential. Not just the ones which can affect human beings, but even the ones that can affect animals and the environment in general. There could be deadly alien pathogens from different ecosystems, right? They could be invasive. They could be an invasive alien species that can destroy an entire ecosystem, affect plant health and animal health, and in turn contribute to diseases amongst humans as well. So this requires integrated disease surveillance to track and monitor all the different types of emerging diseases and the existing pathogens that are known to humans. So integrated disease surveillance and joint outbreak response is the topmost priority. If a new variety of pathogen is detected, if a novel virus is detected, it could be of zoonotic origin. It may still not threaten humans as of now, but ensuring that we monitor these pathogens, study them, focus on research and development is very critical to ensure that we are fully prepared for the next pandemic. And the focus is not just on safeguarding human health, but the focus is also on safeguarding animal health, plant health, and environmental health. So that is the concept of One Health mission. So this mission will drive research and development when it comes to disease surveillance, improved diagnosis, improved treatment and therapeutics and drugs, or development of new vaccines which can prevent certain deadly diseases. All of this will require collaborative effort from public research institutions and as well as private research institutions. So research and development will be at the core of this mission, and it will also require seamless information sharing between all the entities and stakeholders, be it the government, ministries and departments at the central level, or coordination between center and states and the local primary healthcare centers, or cooperation with international institutions and international partners. So all such collaborative efforts are needed to share information about deadly diseases and pathogens, and that is the core purpose, the core objective of this mission. It will focus on controlling not just the routine diseases that are already known to us, but it will also prioritize possible future pandemics. It will closely track various deadly pathogens that has the potential to cause a future pandemic, or at least has the potential to significantly affect animal health and plant health, because that also affects our environment, it affects our economy, it affects our society as well. So keeping track of these diseases, these pathogens, studying them regularly, sharing that information with all the stakeholders, and focusing on research and development to develop new diagnoses, new treatments, new drugs, and new vaccines. That will be the focus of the National One Health mission. So please look at this schematic, this organizational chart. It is depicting all the stakeholders involved in this mission. The primary focus is to promote the concept of One Health through pandemic preparedness, not just with regard to human-related pathogens, but also the ones which can cause diseases in animals and plants as well. Improved disease surveillance, routine programs to prevent the spread of known diseases and even unknown pathogens which have pandemic potential. And a joint outbreak response. If there is an outbreak, how do we contain it? How do we implement few standard protocols like enhanced testing or quarantine measures, right? What should be the standard operating protocol and how should we respond to an outbreak in the future, right? So all these strategies will be worked out under the mission by all the concerned stakeholders. So from the government side, these are the stakeholders. Your state governments, various institutions, scientific and medical institutions, be it the Disaster Management Authority, the National Center for Disease Control, concerned ministries like Ministry of Health, Ministry of Environment, Indian Council of Medical Research, Department of Biotechnology, Department of Science and Technology, DRDO. So all these entities will be part of this collaborative effort, and they will work closely with the private sector. They will work with the pharma industry, the private hospitals and research institutions in the country. They will collaborate with the biotechnology industry. They'll also work with non-government organizations and global partners as well. They'll collaborate with multilateral organizations like WHO, United Nations, our friendly partners at important multilateral forums like G20. So this essentially is the focus of the National One Health Mission. This entire coordination will be driven by the National Institute for One Health. Is that clear? So this is essentially what we need to understand from this important article. So please understand the role of R&D in dealing with diseases that can spread, in dealing with future pandemics. R&D will help in improving our disease surveillance. It will improve our epidemiological approach to understand epidemics. It will help us in early detection, in early disease control measures, better development of diagnostics, treatments, drugs and therapeutics, and development of new vaccines which can effectively curb the spread of these pathogens. So that is why R&D will be the pillar of this mission. So under this mission, India is taking up few initiatives which you should be aware of. India is establishing a network of advanced high-risk laboratories. Advanced laboratories will be coming up in India which will have the highest level of biosafety, because at these labs, researchers will be working with deadly pathogens which can trigger epidemics and pandemics, or in the wrong hands, it can be weaponized as well. So you need to take utmost precaution while working on these deadly pathogens, and you need to maintain very high levels of biosafety by establishing biosafety labs with level 3 and level 4 protection. So at these high-risk laboratories, the required safety measures, protocols will be followed to ensure that these pathogens don't accidentally leak out into the environment. It will allow researchers to study the pathogens, develop treatments, diagnostics and vaccines, and thus keep us prepared for these deadly diseases. So India will be establishing a national network of these laboratories. These high-risk pathogen laboratories will come up with BSL 3 and 4 certification. India will try to address all the possible impact scenarios, be it for humans or animals or plants or the environment, right? For example, let's say if you look at Nipah virus disease, it is the bats, right, which act as the vectors which carry the pathogen, but it is known to affect pigs, it is known to affect humans as well, particularly in Kerala, in Bangladesh and in few other parts of the world. Nipah is indeed a deadly outbreak. Even Malaysia, Bangladesh, West Bengal have all suffered from the consequences of Nipah. Every now and then, Kerala especially is very badly hit by Nipah virus disease. So this could further mutate. It could affect many more animals. It could come out with, there could be a more dangerous strain which could infect humans and could lead to a potential epidemic or a pandemic. So keeping a check on such diseases, studying them, conducting research, right? So that is the whole purpose of this One Health mission. So under the new mission that India has set up, the government has prioritized the role of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data analytics for disease monitoring and disease detection. So such critical emerging technologies can play a very big role in epidemiology. In fact, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw how countries leveraged AI tools and machine learning programs to crunch data and to predict the possible future waves. Right? During COVID-19 pandemic, the possible waves were predicted beforehand. This was done through the basis of data analytics. And to crunch such data, you need AI algorithms, machine learning tools, and they have a huge application when it comes to epidemiology and to study such high-risk pathogens. So under the National One Health mission, India is giving utmost priority for leveraging AI tools and machine learning algorithms and data analysis through which we can improve our disease surveillance, disease detection, and eventual fight against these pathogens. So this is also a very important part of the One Health mission. The other focus area is genome surveillance and genome sequencing, especially to study the different mutations that are happening and which of the strains can pose a threat. If you look at SARS coronavirus 2, which caused the COVID-19 pandemic, several different variants came up, and India and other countries, they kept a constant watch on the new strains that were developing through genome studies, through genome surveillance and genome sequencing. So these measures are being implemented in a structured manner under the National One Health mission. Now coming to the global focus on concept of One Health. This concept was promoted at the G20 summit that was hosted by India last year. In 2023, when India held the presidency of G20, there was a lot of discussion on health-related issues given our recent experience with COVID-19 pandemic. Given how the pandemic disrupted the global economy and led to a huge human cost around the world, as millions of people lost their lives, dealing with such future pandemics became a priority for the G20 grouping. So India took the lead initiative. As India held the presidency of G20, we assumed the leadership role to promote the concept of One Health, which has been adopted by the other G20 members as well. Be it information sharing with each other. Because initially, when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, there were accusations against China, which was the source of SARS coronavirus 2, that China was not very transparent when it came to sharing of information with WHO and other partner countries. There are allegations that if China had been more transparent, possibly we could have contained the spread of SARS coronavirus 2. So the idea here is to bring governments together, bring multilateral institutions together like WHO, so that there is transparent information sharing, better surveillance, better international cooperation as well through the One Health concept. So it's in this line that India has taken this step, and that is why the topic is very, very important for both prelims and mains. So please pay attention to this article. Go through the article again if you want and keep some points ready. There could be a basic prelims question on the concept of One Health, or a possible mains question in GS paper 2, or even a possible essay topic. So let's move on to the next article from page number 10. This article is related to unemployment levels in India. Recently, a disturbing report came out through the International Labour Organization and the Institute for Human Development. In fact, I had discussed this topic when the report was published a few days ago. We had discussed this under the prelim section. So this report, which is India Employment Report 2024, brought out by ILO and IHD, it gives insight into India's labour market. So along with the findings of this report, We also have the periodic labor force survey brought out by the government of India, which gives us great insight into employment numbers in the country. So there are some disturbing trends that have been brought out by some of these reports. According to the ILO report, two out of every three educated youth in India, they are unemployed. They're not able to find a job. The ILO report, the India Employment Report, it states that out of three highly educated graduates in the country, only two of them are not able to find employment. That shows the higher levels of unemployment amongst educated youth as well, even though they have been able to access higher education and ensure that they have the right skills as well, right? Still they are not employable and they're not finding employment opportunities. So that is an alarming concern brought out by the report, and hence the Hindu conducts an analysis based on the findings of these reports. It's drawing data from India Employment Report of ILO and also data from the PLFS survey, the Periodic Labor Force Survey. So let's look at the state-wise analysis of unemployment rates in the country. If you look at the state-wise analysis of unemployment, this is how the ranking looks. The state of Goa registers the highest level of unemployment amongst the educated youth. It registers an unemployment rate of 10%, which is almost 3 times more than the national average. The national average for India is 3.17%. That is the rate of unemployment amongst the educated category, right? People who are educated, who are looking out for jobs, but they're not finding suitable jobs. So Goa ranks at the top with 10% unemployment rates. Then what is interesting is that if you look at the top 5 states, at least 4 of them, they're actually the richer states of the country. It also includes Kerala, Punjab and Haryana. Just look at the graph which is there on my left side. You look at Kerala, Haryana and Punjab, right? Even they have very high levels of unemployment amongst the educated youth, which is many times higher than the national average. So what is interesting is that these states, especially Punjab and Kerala, right, even Haryana to an extent, if you look at their GDP, if you look at their per capita income, they are considered as richer states of India. If not industrialized, at least they are seen as richer states of India. But still, unemployment levels are higher. Amongst the educated youth, they are not able to find adequate jobs. Then if you look at the western states, Maharashtra and Gujarat, if you look at the western states of India, that is Maharashtra and Gujarat, their unemployment rates are far less than the national average. So what does this indicate? It indicates that there is a higher level of urbanization and industrialization in Gujarat and Maharashtra. Both are major manufacturing hubs, right? They have tremendous export potential as well. So there are plenty of industries located in Gujarat and Maharashtra, which has been able to create enough jobs for the educated youth present in those states. So they register relatively lower levels of unemployment amongst the educated youth as compared to the national average. And another interesting point is about the northern and southern states of India. If you look at the northern states like Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, if you bring Punjab and Haryana into the bracket as well, along with UP, Bihar and others, you will notice that the unemployment rates are much higher than the national average. And if you compare this with the southern states, even in southern states except for Karnataka, unemployment rates are quite high. As we saw, Kerala is right in the top 3 position, right? It's within the top 3. It's at the second position amongst the top 3 states which have high levels of unemployment amongst educated youth. Southern states, even Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, they register higher levels of unemployment within the educated category, with the exception of Karnataka. So, what can we infer from this data, right? What can we analyze and understand from this crucial data that has been brought out. What trends can we spot? What issues can be identified? And how can we address these challenges? So that is the next logical question to ask. So let's look at self-employment and unemployment correlation that exists based on this data. That will actually give us more insight into these reports. Now, if you plot a graph of self-employment versus unemployment, this is how the graph looks like. You will see a downward trend. You are seeing a downward trend, which means that there is a negative correlation between self-employment and unemployment levels. So what does this mean? Let me explain that. It essentially means that in a few states where unemployment rates appear to be lower, like let's say for example, if you take UP and compare UP with Kerala, generally what is our understanding? Kerala has higher levels of literacy. It has better educational opportunities, right? It is more urbanized and industrialized according to the general perception that we have, right? But still Kerala is at the second position with regard to unemployed graduates, whereas UP performs better, relatively better. But if you compare UP with, let's say, Maharashtra and Gujarat, UP's performance is very poor compared to the numbers from Maharashtra and Gujarat. So essentially what could be happening here is that in a state like UP, for example, right, where there is a higher dependency on rural agrarian economy, where there is a greater dependency on the informal sector, several educated youth, they might claim to be employed because they are self-employed. They might have taken jobs in the informal sector, right? They might be looking after their family businesses or factories or shops run by the family members, right? So it doesn't exactly mean that they have managed to secure the right employment for their education and skill set. Is that clear? So there could be several graduates in, let's say, states like UP or Punjab or Haryana, which still rely more on the informal sector, on agriculture and rural economy. Several of the youth, they are employed in these informal sectors, or some of them are self-employed, and that number is getting captured here, which again points out that we have not been able to industrialize these states. The governments, the central government and the concerned state governments, they have not been able to boost manufacturing and services industry, which would create more jobs that could pull the youth away from agriculture labor and rural labor and push them towards manufacturing and services. That transition has not really happened in some of the states. Some states report higher levels of self-employment and employment in the informal sector because there are no formal jobs available. You don't have adequate, rather let's say that there aren't adequate number of jobs available in the formal sector where the educated youth can be employed in these particular states. So that could be a reason why in states like UP or even Madhya Pradesh, unemployment rates appear to be lower than national average. But in reality, most of them, despite having higher education, they are working in informal sectors, in agriculture, in rural economy, right? Some of them are claiming to be self-employed. So that could be the reason behind the mismatch, the anomaly that you're seeing in the data. Now, if you look at the extent of urbanization across different states and compare that with the unemployment rates, even this throws up some very interesting findings. If you plot this as a graph of urbanization versus unemployment, here you notice an upward trend, meaning there is a positive correlation between the two. So what does this indicate? It indicates that states which are more urbanized, they will obviously have better education opportunities, but they are not able to create employment for the educated youth. You take states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and other urbanized, industrialized states of the country. They are producing more graduates, more educated youth, because they have a good educational system compared to the other states, but they are not able to find adequate jobs, which again points to the weakness in manufacturing, the weakness in services industry in creating adequate jobs for the educated youth of the country. Is that clear? Even if you look at, let's say, Maharashtra and Gujarat, we saw that Maharashtra, Gujarat are performing better if you just look at unemployment data compared to other states. This could be because due to large-scale industrialization, more jobs have opened up for the educated youth in Maharashtra and Gujarat compared to the educated youth in the other states. So states which report higher degree of urbanization, if they do not focus on manufacturing and services industry, if they don't expand the labor market, the job market, through the right policies, through the right economic intervention, then educated youth will remain unemployed. They may not be able to secure the right job. So that is a concern getting flagged by this data. Then finally, if we compare the education levels and employment rates, if you plot this as a graph, again you will see a positive correlation between the two. There is an upward trend based on data collected from different states. So this data tells us that even though some states have been able to provide for education opportunities, they have a good primary, secondary education system, they have adequate number of colleges and universities providing higher education, but still their unemployment rates are higher. So this could mean that either the educated youth are not employable, meaning they don't have the right skills, they don't possess the requisite skills for them to be employed in the industry, which paints a bad picture about our education system, about our colleges and universities. So it's an indicator that we need to improve our infrastructure, education infrastructure, the teaching methods, right? The curriculum which is taught in our colleges and universities needs an upgrade. We are producing graduates, we are producing lakhs of engineers and other graduates, but they don't have the right skills. The industry requisite skills are not present amongst these graduates, and hence they are not getting recruited. Even in states like Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, which do report higher levels of education, higher access to education, still the youth are not employable. They're not finding adequate jobs because one reason could be that they're not having the right skills. So this points towards the need for improving our educational standard, our educational infrastructure, and the teaching methods and curriculum. So essentially, in a developing economy like India, a transition in the labor market is definitely expected, right? A developing economy is bound to go through a transition where majority of your farm labor and rural labor is expected to move away from agriculture and shift towards manufacturing and then towards services. This is the general transition that is expected to happen in a developing economy like India. If you look at India's labor market, almost 58 to 60% of our population, or the working age population, they are employed in the agriculture sector. We have seen a very minimal shift towards manufacturing and a bigger shift directly towards services, because our services industry has expanded at a much faster rate than our manufacturing. So this points to the structural inadequacies that exist in the Indian economy as well. The failure to expand our manufacturing sector has directly led to the educated youth getting stuck in the rural economy, in agriculture sector, where they are taking up jobs in informal sector or they are claiming to be self-employed. Some of them are finding jobs in manufacturing and many of them are finding jobs in services, but it's not adequate. Not all the educated youth are finding jobs in manufacturing and services, either because there aren't enough jobs or they don't have the right skills, right? It could be a combination of the two. So that is what we take away from the data brought out through ILO's report and through the PLFS data. So what it requires is right policies by the center and the state, right, to ensure that we expand our manufacturing industries, we provide them with better incentives, better infrastructure, relax our regulatory provisions, provide for structural economic reforms, and ensure that our educated youth are employable, ensure that they are taught the right skills, which helps them secure jobs after their graduation. So all these interventions will have to be done not just by the central government, but also by the state governments. So that is the conclusion, the way forward for this particular issue that we have examined in this article. Now let's look at the next important article from page number 8 that's related to international relations. According to this article, India is looking to post a set of new defense attaches in India's diplomatic missions abroad. So you need to understand the role of a defense attache. What is their role? Why is their role significant? And which regions, which countries are the focus for India? What do the defense attaches do in our diplomatic missions abroad? Defense attaches are essentially military officers drawn from Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Indian Navy. They are sent on a diplomatic posting. They are stationed in Indian embassies, Indian high commissions, Indian consulates abroad. And they act as the military representative from India to build closer defense relations with the other country. So let's examine the role of a defense attaché. Let's understand this in detail, and then we'll talk about the focus countries and regions where India is deploying more defense attachés in its diplomatic missions. First and foremost, a defense attaché who is a military officer, they lead India's military diplomacy in the country where they are stationed. They are not career diplomats. They are not like your IFS officers, Indian Foreign Service officers, who are career diplomats, right? So these are drawn from the military. They are drawn from the Army, Navy, and the Indian Air Force. They undergo a brief training at the Foreign Policy Institute in Delhi, the Sushma Swaraj Foreign Policy Institute in New Delhi, where IFS probationers are also trained. So they undergo a short duration course in diplomacy regarding the protocols and the processes that they need to follow. And they are appointed as India's defense attachés in our embassies, high commissions, and consulates. So they are part of the Indian mission abroad. They work under the concerned embassy or high commission, and they work under the concerned ambassador or high commissioner of India. But they will independently drive India's military diplomacy with that country. Is that clear? Essentially, military to military relations between the Indian armed forces and the armed forces of the other countries. This military relationship is driven by a defense attaché. They focus on building military cooperation between our armed forces. This could include sharing of intelligence, sharing military relevant information, focusing on defense trade, attempting to boost India's defense exports, or looking for key defense equipment and components that are critical for modernization of Indian forces. So driving defense exports and imports will be one of the primary tasks of a defense attaché. Is that clear? So they will build closer military to military relations. They act as a liaison for the Indian armed forces to work with the armed forces of the other countries. They drive defense trade between the two countries. They will identify what military equipment can be exported from India. Right? Today, India has a very vibrant domestic defense industry, indigenous defense industry. We can export our missiles or rockets or other military hardware to other countries. So defense attachés identify the requirement. They will analyze the requirement of the armed forces of the other country, work with them, showcase our products, and essentially sell the products to those countries. This could boost our defense exports. At the same time, they look out for critical military hardware and technologies needed for Indian forces, which we can procure from abroad, which we can import from the other country. They will also try to build a joint relationship in defense research and development, in joint co-production of defense technologies. They will play a critical role in coordinating and planning and implementing military exercises, joint military exercises, and even sometimes, if required, joint military operations between the two countries. Let's say a certain country has been hit by a disaster, and Indian Navy, along with, let's say, US Navy, are rushing to assist that country. So the defense attaché, concerned defense attachés, will work together with the respective armed forces to bring coordination between them to ensure that a joint disaster management mission is carried out to help out the third country. Let's say they are dealing with piracy or terrorism or any other security threat. So planning these joint operations, implementing them, or planning and conducting joint military exercises becomes part of the mandate of the defense attaché. And finally, executing a joint response during emergencies. When a security-related emergency has developed, let's say there is a real-time piracy incident or a terrorist incident which has taken place. So the armed forces of two countries have to work together, and defense attachés play a critical role in driving jointness, interoperability between the armed forces of both the sides. So it is a military role. They engage in military diplomacy. Is that clear? There could be a 10-mark question where UPSC might ask you, what is the role of defense attachés, or what do they do when they are stationed in Indian diplomatic missions? So under the new appointments that has been done by the Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Defense, right? There are few focus regions where new defense attachés are being appointed, and Africa is one major focus for India. In Western Africa, we are working with Ivory Coast, or Côte d'Ivoire, which is a very important African nation in West Africa, and a new defense attaché is being appointed here in the Indian mission present in Ivory Coast. In Eastern and Southeastern Africa as well, in Ethiopia, in Mozambique, and more importantly in Djibouti. In these three countries, India's defense attachés are being deployed. With Ethiopia, we have very strong economic and military relations that are developing. With Mozambique, we have very close historical, cultural links and economic and strategic relations as well. Mozambique, it sits over the Mozambique Channel, which is critical for shipping. This channel that you see here between this part of southern Eastern Africa and Madagascar, it's a vital shipping lane, right? And Indian Navy has a presence over here. We have assisted Mozambique during several disasters, especially cyclones and other disasters. Indian Navy is constantly deployed here in these East African countries. Djibouti is extremely important as it sits right across the Bab el-Mandeb Strait over here, which is a strategic choke point. You all know how the Houthis have threatened shipping between Red Sea and Arabian Sea near the Gulf of Aden and Bab el-Mandeb Strait. You also know about Somalian piracy, which is a major threat here in Horn of Africa, in the East Africa region. So Indian Navy has a major deployment here. Recently, we have conducted many operations against piracy, and we have stabilized these waters against the Houthi attacks from Yemen. So building this military relationship with Djibouti is very important, very critical for the Indian Navy. It will help us gain access to the region and arrange the required logistics for Indian Navy and Indian Air Force to conduct their military operations to stabilize these shipping channels. And don't forget, Djibouti is so important that many foreign navies already have a military base located here. Be it US, few European navies, and more importantly, China. Right? China has set up its first foreign military base over here in Djibouti. So India appointing a defense attaché to this country is of great critical importance as it highlights our focus on Africa. Similarly, the whole Indo-Pacific, the entire Indo-Pacific region is a focus for India as far as military diplomacy is concerned. So several countries are receiving the defense attaches from India. Even in the Eurasia region, Armenia has become critical for us. As part of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, India has directly backed Armenia. We have exported a number of defense military hardware recently to Armenia to strengthen the military capabilities of Armenia. Because Azerbaijan has been quite hostile to India, it has aligned with Pakistan and Turkey to target India over the Kashmir issue. So as a result, India has sided with Armenia as far as the conflict is concerned. And even though we haven't taken an explicit stand on the conflict, we have definitely started military supplies and we have supplied advanced military hardware. From defense radars to rockets and missiles have been exported by India to Armenia. So a defense attaché is being stationed in our mission in Armenia as well. So this goes on to show how important military diplomacy is as part of India's foreign policy. So that is what you need to understand from this important article. Now coming to the fourth article from page number 8. The article is focused on European sanctions on Russia and how it affects India. As you all know, Russia has been hit with economic sanctions by the Western countries led by US and European Union. Ever since Russia started targeting Ukraine since 2014, since Russia annexed Crimean Peninsula and sponsored a separatist war in eastern Ukraine, since then Russia has been hit with Western economic sanctions. And especially after Russia invaded Ukraine a couple of years ago and went to war, Western countries have scaled up their economic sanctions with the objective of crippling the Russian economy. They want to cut off Russia's primary exports to limit its revenue, which is essentially funding its war in Ukraine. So they have targeted key sectors in Russia like oil and as well as diamonds. So India, which has been neutral with regard to this conflict, right? At least officially we have remained neutral. But in reality, we have sided with Russia in a way because we have bypassed these sanctions. India never follows these unilateral sanctions. And keeping in mind the strategic relations that we have had with Russia, we have continued the close economic strategic relations by completely ignoring the Western economic sanctions. India became one of the largest buyers of Russian discounted oil along with China. So in a way, India and China together sponsored the Russian war in Ukraine by becoming the biggest buyers of Russian oil by ignoring and bypassing the Western economic sanctions. So this remained a challenge for India because from Western countries we were under tremendous pressure to follow the sanctions and especially not to re-export the petroleum products from India to European countries. Because the Russian oil that we were procuring at a cheaper rate, it was being processed in India by Indian refiners. And later we were re-exporting this to European markets again. So in a way, the sanctions was getting defeated, right? Because Russian petroleum commodities was reaching Europe through India, through a third party, that is India and even through China. That's why European countries, they even criticized India. They called India as a laundromat country, as a country which is laundering Russian oil and re-exporting petroleum commodities to European markets. That was essentially defeating their sanctions against Russia. So this was a challenge over the last 2 years. And now there is another concern which has come up, that is with regard to Russian diamonds. European countries are targeting Russian diamonds because Russia's diamond exports is a critical source of revenue for the Russian government. And India, being a hub of diamond processing, right? Almost 95% of the diamond cutting and polishing industry is located in India, particularly in Gujarat, in Surat. So India is one of the vital links in the diamond supply chain. Diamonds that are mined around the world, they reach India. Almost 95% of the diamonds, they reach India. They go through the cutting process, the polishing process, and then it is re-exported to other markets. So this is a crucial export for India because gems and jewelry industry, it's a labor intensive industry. It creates millions of jobs in India. But now European countries are targeting Russian diamonds which are being routed from a third country like India. See, a few months ago, the G7 countries had actually imposed sanctions on Russian diamonds to prevent Russian diamonds from reaching European and American markets. Back then, European Union had assured India that the sanctions will not affect the re-export from a third country like India. But now, they have issued a fresh notification. The EU countries have adopted a fresh resolution which is banning the procurement of Russian diamonds even from third countries like India. So essentially, India's diamond exports towards European markets, towards Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, UK, France, this will get affected significantly if they expand the sanctions and impose this on third parties like India. And this will affect our diamond industry. So this has come up as a concern. India has raised this issue with the European Union and the concerned countries. So that is what the article is talking about. As of now, there is no solution for this. These countries had promised India that the sanctions will not affect India's diamond processing industry. But now it appears that it's going to hit our diamond industry. And that is why India has raised this issue diplomatically with the European partners. So this completes my detailed discussion of all the big articles. Now let's take a quick look at the smaller articles relevant for prelims. On page number 12, we have an article referring to the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. The article itself is not very important. The article says NIIF is going to invest around 200 million in a technology startup to boost our digital infrastructure. So article itself is not relevant for us, but this particular fund which is being referred to is very important for our exams. Under the economy section, you can expect a question on National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. So let's understand what is this fund, when was it set up, what is its purpose. This fund was established in the year 2015 following its announcement in the 2015-2016 Union Budget. It's essentially a sovereign wealth fund. It's one of the first sovereign wealth funds of India backed by the government of India. It's established by the government of India itself, and it attracts investments from private entities and from global investors. So there are global investors like the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Abu Dhabi and UAE, which have invested in the National Investment Infrastructure Fund of India. You also have World Bank. You have Asian Development Bank. You also have the New Development Bank of BRICS and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank led by China. All these developmental institutions, they have invested in the NIIF. It's a dedicated fund to raise long-term capital for infrastructure projects in the country. See, India plans to become a $5 trillion economy, right, in a few years, and a developed country in a few decades. To achieve that, we need advanced infrastructure, from better roads to better power infrastructure to better ports, etc. So this will require billions of dollars of investment in India to create these infrastructure projects, be it greenfield projects which are built from scratch or brownfield projects where existing projects are upgraded, right? For both such projects, we need enormous funding, and to create that liquidity, to arrange that long-term capital for infrastructure projects in India, this sovereign wealth fund was established by the government of India. It's established and backed by the government, and it attracts investments from global partners and multilateral development institutions, and also from private entities. Private banks in India, for example, have invested. Other sovereign wealth funds of other governments have invested. So please know what is the purpose of this fund and for what reason it was established in 2015. Next, on page number 13, we have an article referring to China's EV market, the electric vehicle market. I hope you know that China is already considered as a global leader when it comes to EV production. Right? China has these ambitious plans to emerge as a global hub for electric vehicle production, not just to shift its transportation sector away from fossil fuel-based vehicles towards EV vehicles, but it also wants to supply the EV vehicles to the rest of the world. As countries focus on net zero emissions and their climate targets, most countries are going to shift away from fossil fuels. They're going to end their dependency on internal combustion engines and adopt electric vehicles, right? Even India and most other countries have similar plans in place. So China is planning to emerge as a top EV producer and an exporter. But to export cars, there is one important logistical requirement, which is a specific ship which is custom built for carrying cars. Let's say there is a country which is a major car producing nation, right? So to export those cars, you need sufficient shipping capacity. You need customized vessels which are customized for carrying cars. Is that clear? Because generally cargo is sent through these shipping containers which are docked and stacked one upon the other in these large shipping vessels. But if you are exporting cars from one country to another, which are assembled in one country and then being sold in another country, you need these customized car carrying vessels. It's a critical logistical requirement. All right? And China is still lagging behind in this regard. As of today, it's the 8th largest country in the world when it comes to car carrying shipping capacity. The number 1 country is Japan. Japan has the world's highest number of car carrying ships, 283 ships belonging to Japanese companies, right? They have car carrying capacity, which makes Japan one of the largest exporters of cars and automobiles. Followed by Japan, it is Norway, then South Korea, and the Isle of Man. These countries, these regions, they have the best shipping capacity when it comes to exporting cars. So China is at the 8th position. It wants to jump to the 4th position in 2 to 3 years. As it is expanding its EV production, China is not only looking to meet its domestic requirement, it wants to meet the global demand. It wants to export its electric vehicles to markets around the world, and this requires additional shipping capacity, car carrying capacity in the shipping vessels. So China has placed a massive order to increase its car carrying capacity, which will make China the 4th largest country in the world in terms of car carrying ships. So in this regard, India is still a little far behind. Even though we have several car companies in India that produce cars in India, right? They not only meet domestic demand, but we export our cars produced in India to other countries. Be it domestic companies like Maruti, Tata, Mahindra, or even foreign automobile manufacturers like Hyundai and others. They all have manufacturing plants in India. They produce cars not just for the Indian market, but they export them as well, right? But India's car carrying shipping capacity is very limited. Now it becomes all the more important because of some interesting developments that are happening in the EV space. I'm sure many of you would have recently read about reports that Tesla is about to enter the Indian market, right? Recently we discussed in our session as well how the government relaxed certain policy measures regarding EV imports into India, how the taxes and duties were brought down, which paves the way for import of Tesla cars into the Indian market. And now the media is abuzz, internet is buzzing with reports that Elon Musk, the founder, owner of Tesla, is going to visit India, meet with Prime Minister Modi, and most likely a huge joint venture is likely to be announced with an Indian company, which means a massive Tesla manufacturing plant is going to come up in India. Since India also has very ambitious plans to transition to electric vehicles, right? Even we are looking at exporting them. We are not just looking at meeting our domestic demand. Even we would like to export to other countries. And this is where we will face stiff competition with other countries like China, Japan, South Korea, and others, which are leading automobile manufacturers. So that's an important lesson for India. It's not just enough to build your automobile manufacturing capacity. You should also have the logistical capability to export them to other countries. That is what Japan has built, South Korea has built, and that's exactly what China is trying to build, right? So that is something India should learn from these auto majors as far as the EV industry and automobile industry is concerned. Now coming to the last article for today, from page number 14, US and Japan have elevated their military and strategic relations by signing a new security deal. Both US and Japan are concerned about Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. They are already very close military allies. And US and Japan have further elevated their military relationship through the new security agreement that they have signed. According to this agreement, US and Japan will jointly develop advanced missiles in the coming years. The US will also help Japan in its air defense, in countering any aerial threats and threats from missiles and aircraft, which is a reference to China, because China is very aggressive against Japan in East China Sea, where both countries have a maritime dispute going on. Now, can you tell me which is this disputed island in East China Sea between China and Japan? Mention the name of this island in the comments below. So Japan faces a credible threat from China and its aggression, its military aggression, right? So US has guaranteed since the Second World War that it will defend Japan against any external threats. In a way, the US has given a nuclear guarantee as well. If necessary, it will deploy nuclear weapons if needed to defend Japan as part of its post-World War commitments. That's the reason why Japan never developed nuclear weapons. It adopted a pacifist constitution. So US has this obligation to defend Japan, assist Japan in its security, in its defense. So the two countries are elevating their military partnership, and even Australia will be a part of one initiative that focuses on air defense, essentially to deal with aerial threats from missiles, drones, and hostile aircraft. US, Japan, and Australia are coming together to create an air defense network in the Pacific region. So that is what we understand from this article. And also note down that US, Japan are going to collaborate in future lunar missions. In the future moon landing missions, the JAXA, the Japanese space agency, will collaborate with the NASA of US. So that is what the new deal deals with. The security agreement, the strategic partnership agreement they have signed, elevates their military and strategic relations across these domains. So on this note, I would like to conclude today's discussion, and you can take down these two questions for your answer writing practice. Both questions are related to what we discussed earlier. You can use the same points, the same structure to write an answer for these questions, and I request you to post your answers in the comment section below. So I hope you guys have liked today's session. On this note, I would like to bring the class to an end. And if you benefited from the initiative, do let me know in the comments. I'll go through your comments. Also mention the answers, post your answers. Let's see who can write the best answer. And maybe tomorrow I can take the name of the top 3 students who have written the best answer for these 2 questions. So that is it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.